What's up, guys? Welcome back to HRT. I hope your week was swell. You're going to be watching this while I am on a vacation. So, this is pre recorded. It is November 20th at the moment. And this episode is exciting for many different reasons. I have Nate helping me out today. Hi,
Whoop,
Nate.
whoop. Hey.
Nate is acting as my co host today. And our guest is Cameron. Cameron is a non binary person who has a really inspiring story and gave us a lot of insight on non binary people, stuff that I never even thought about in the first place. And I'm glad that I'm more aware of things now. So that was really fun. We talked about the differences in binary trans people and non binary people, non-binary people in the media, whole lot of fun stuff. I'm excited for you to hear. And you know the weekly spiel. Join the Discord, sub to the Patreon. Nate and I have a lot of content on the Patreon. Nate's helped me out a lot, and I very much appreciate it for you, bro. And yeah, make sure you sub to that. And that's about it for this week, I think. Yeah, let's go talk to Cameron. Thanks, guys. Bye. All right, Cameron, let me start by asking you where you are from.
All right, I'm from California.
California.
Which I'm not sure if there's been any California people so far.
I don't think so. I think you're right.
I also don't think so.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
How is California with all things trans?
I mean, clearly it's probably the best state. It is one of the sanctuary states for trans people. And yeah, I don't have to worry about losing my rights here because, like, my hometown where I grew up tried to pass one of the laws where it's like the teachers have to out trans kids to their parents in the school district, and then the California governor sued my school district and was like, no, you can't do that. So
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Damn, that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah. So
cool. Okay, wait, how old are you, by the way?
Yeah, I'm 24.
24, same age as me. Nate, you're 23, right? I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm 23.
All right, cool. 24. You're on hormones?
But Cody, you're 24, right, as well?
Yes, 24.
Okay,
24
cool.
gang.
Sweet. Yeah,
I'm coming.
And yes, I am.
You are on hormones?
Yeah, okay, so I was for 2.5 years, and then about 2 months ago, I stopped.
Oh, shit, plot twist.
Just for shits and giggles, no. Because I know we're going to talk about it, but shot anxiety, is awful. And I don't know, also just being a non-binary, when I started hormones, I never intended to stay on it for very long. When I started, I was like, I'm going to do this for 6 months to a year for my voice to drop. And then I got on it and I was like, oh, this is nice. I like this. So it wasn't until I started to have to deal with receding hairline and back hair that I was like, too man for me. I can't do that. It's too far.
No, that's so real. The hair growth is crazy.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's too much.
It's all I wanted was a deep voice and to pass, and all I got was hair. It's just hair everywhere.
Especially
not what I asked for.
I feel like it was especially prominent in those first 6 months that you were talking about too, or at least that's when I noticed a lot of hair growth. It was that first thing.
Yeah, no, fun. I think it's really cool though that you were kind of just you went on hormones, kind of got to the place you wanted to be, and then we're like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, and that was one of my big fears starting, was that I was afraid I was going to get to a point where it was going to start causing dysphoria. So I started disliking some things, and I was like, let's hit the brakes. But I feel very grateful to have full control over that. And I talked to my doctor, and I was just like, I'm done. And she was like, okay. And then I was able to do whatever I wanted.
Yeah, for real. Now, did you notice any changes in your mood or anything when you came off of it?
Yeah. Okay. I'm crying all the time. And this is so funny to like be listening to this podcast with some of the trans women because I relate to them. I feel like I'm like, and I don't, the whole detransitioning topic is very spicy,
Spice
but
is a good word.
I feel that but in some ways I feel like I'm on estrogen, which like technically I am, but like I'm crying all the time, I'm so moody, and I'm like getting used to all these things again, including the whole period and all that, which is rough. But like, yeah, been noticing a lot of changes getting off of it, which there's a lot less information about out there of like trans or non-binary, trans masculine people that go on hormones and then go back off. I haven't found as many resources for those that go back off and what to expect. So I've been looking into a lot of what trans women experience, which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. That's definitely not talked about enough. You think
Mhm.
there'll there'll be a day in the future where you decide to go back on? If like,
Very much so. I have all of my supplies and my needles and extra testosterone just in case. I made sure I had a stockpile just in case I was like, oh, this was the wrong decision. Um, yeah, but so far it's all right.
nice.
How long have you been off of it again?
It's been about 2 months.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
And how long were you on
yeah,
it altogether?
2.5 years.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So I feel like my body's doing a lot of adjusting from like 2 years of that to, I mean, I tapered down a little bit, but
That was gonna be my question. Was it like, like, did you just be like, nope, done, or like you kind of did 1 week and then off 1 week, or?
I like slowly lowered my dose over the course of
Oh,
like 4 weeks, um,
that's
which was annoying because I was at the point where I was like, I'm done with this. I don't want to keep doing shots. But I forced myself to slowly lower it just because cold turkey is scary.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder like cuz like you were on it for 2 years, most of the changes happen within those first 2 years. I think the only thing that happened to me after
Yes.
those 2 years was like beard growth. That was the only place hair chose to not show up for the first 2 years, but that
Real.
was pretty much it. Yeah.
I think my experience is a little different because I started on an incredibly low dose. I started on injecting zero point 0.1 mils, which like for I think most people that do it weekly injections do between like zero point 0.3 to zero point 0.5 mils
Were
injections.
you
Mhm.
doing every 2 weeks?
I was doing it every week, but just incredibly low dose, and slowly over the course of a year, finally got up to zero point 0.3 mils.
Oh, okay.
Um, and then, so it wasn't until I was about a year on T that like it started hitting.
Catch you starting to hit.
So when I say like 2.5 years, it's like really a year and a half of like the good stuff of it in the
Right.
high dose.
Yeah,
good,
that makes
good,
sense.
good.
But yeah.
Now you said before that you were afraid that you were going to start experiencing gender dysphoria, but on the opposite side of things, right? Because before
Yeah.
you started, you were,
Yeah.
you know, I guess things that were too feminine made you dysphoric, right? And then maybe
Yeah.
when you were on testosterone, it was like, okay, things are getting a little too masculine now. Is that kind of how it went for you?
Yeah. Yeah, and it is dysphoric to me to be constantly seen and gendered as male. Um, but I prefer that to getting she heard all the
Right.
time. So it's like a balance for me, where I would like to enter situations and be like a little gender ambiguous, but most people just see me as like a man. So I feel like I got to a point where it was just like too masculine, and I wanted to be able to fem it up a little bit. But mostly it had to do with shot anxiety and losing hair on my head were like the main reasons that I like really was like, all right, let's pause and see how I feel.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, just wondering how it's going to be on the opposite end of things, like how I'm going to feel being gendered as masculine all the time was very scary for me entering into my medical
Yeah,
transition.
I don't blame you. I think that's kind of really cool. Like I feel like that's like a little hack to go on hormones for a little bit and then come off just to find that like sweet spot of where you feel
Hmm.
comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
why not?
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit more about your shot anxiety though. When you were doing your shots, did you have somebody else do it for
Yeah.
you? Like, how did that go?
Um, No, I always did it on my own. And so what's funny to me is I did not have shot anxiety when all of this started. I was so excited to do my own injections. It made me feel so trans. Like I was so proud of it. And I was so excited about it for like the first like year. Like I would like record myself doing it and was like all cute about it. And was so genuinely excited to do it. And it wasn't until about 2 years that I was like, okay, I'm over this. Like, this is a lot. And it was more like just avoidance. I would just avoid thinking about it and avoid doing it. And then suddenly 2 weeks went by and my acne was going crazy because I hadn't done my shot. And like I never really had like massive like hormonal shifts from like not doing my shot or like I didn't have like mood issues or anything like that, but my acne would pop off. And that would force me to be like, okay, I'll do my shot.
Yeah.
That's the same shit that would happen to me. Um, and those things like play a part in dysphoria. I feel like when I start breaking out, it's like I don't know, because to
Mhm.
me, I get mad at the testosterone, and then I get mad at myself for being mad at the testosterone, and it's like it's a
Yeah.
whirlwind of emotions.
Yeah. So
Downward
a
spiral.
1,000%.
Right.
It sounded like it got more like tedious for you than anything. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It became a really tedious task that I did not enjoy doing anymore. And then just skipping it was, yeah, skipping all my shots very often just wasn't good for me. So,
Preaching to the choir.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
I know, yeah. We all suffer from it.
Yeah, unfortunately. I was off for like 2 weeks for no good reason, and my acne
Mhm.
is through the roof right now. So I know exactly who.
See,
Me too, bestie.
it sucks, and it's like you did it to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
sucks.
completely hear you when you say that you enjoy doing the injections in the beginning and you didn't have much shot
Mhm.
anxiety. I remember in the beginning of taking my injections, the first couple were terrifying, but then as I went on, it was like, okay, like this is fairly easy. I can do this. And then when it started to become a chore and like a maintenance thing for myself, that's when I was like, the
Mhm.
anxiety of actually injecting myself became a problem for me. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but not fun. Not fun at all. Uh, surgeries. Do you want to get any? Have you gotten any?
Yeah, so I've actually had top surgery twice, which I also don't know if anybody's talked about revisions on here yet. So I had to have a revision. Um, I had top surgery before I started hormones. So when I was coming out as trans in the year of 2020, as we do, um, the first thing I knew, and the only thing I knew, was I need top surgery. That's what matters to me. I didn't even think I was gonna ever want hormones. I just knew I had to get that shit off my chest. I had to stop binding all the time. And as soon as 2020 hit, I was like, oh, I was in school and I didn't have to wear a backpack anymore, and I didn't have to go to class. I could just sit in bed and do my classwork. So I was like, well, I'll just get surgery and then just keep doing my classwork. Um, I did very bad that quarter, but yeah. But yeah, so I got double incision in October 2020. And then the following year, for my 1 year checkup with my surgeon, he was like, we could do a revision. We could thin out your scars and like make things more symmetrical. And at that point, I hadn't really thought about it. I knew that I wasn't 100% happy like how symmetrical everything was on my chest, but I just didn't think about revision until he was like, let's do it. And he was able to fit it within the same insurance period, so it was free. And so it was basically like I went to see him. He was like, let's fit you in within the next week. And then I went home and I got a phone call and was like, do you want to have surgery tomorrow? And then I had surgery tomorrow.
Wow, that is awesome.
It was like the most bizarre thing in the world.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Huh. That's kind of cool. I have never really thought about a revision either, and not that like I've said it before, but not that like I'm upset with the way my chest looks, but like
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel like for a while, I remember following this kid on Instagram. His name is Hunter, HK Hunter. He had keyhole surgery, top surgery, and he didn't like it, and he was like embarrassed by the fact that he didn't like it, and everyone told him to like get a revision and stuff, and he was like, just the topic of revisions were like not good.
Taboo.
Yeah, taboo.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. Like it just
Mm.
for some reason. And in my head, I always thought a revision was like not possible for me, but like low key, now that I'm thinking about it, honestly,
Sounds like it could
Yeah.
be.
sounds
Yeah.
like it could
Yeah.
be. Right.
Because I was in the same spot where like I was happy with it and I would have been fine with it, but just because I was like presented this opportunity, like you could be happier.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Why not? That's pretty
And
cool.
I feel like that's such a trans experience too. Like always like choosing things that just could make you be happier. Like
yeah.
that's it.
Nate just had top surgery.
I did, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And I like perked up when you said like I had it twice because I also had it twice because
Oh
I got
yeah.
I had a hematoma on my right chest wall, so like I had to go in like within the same week. So
Oh,
I get
wow.
the going back in.
That's stressful, and it adds like a whole extra week of recovery and like all of
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
can't imagine how stressful that is right in that first week too.
Yeah, it was a lot because like I went in like to my I went into my post-op kind of knowing that something was off because like I grew like a really gross bruise too. And so like I kind of just thought they were gonna be like, yeah, we need to keep your drains in a little bit longer. So that's what I was prepared for. And they were like, no, we need you to get in tomorrow. I was like, oh, got it. Thank you. But
Nate, I feel
ended up working
like,
well.
can I be real, Nate? I feel
Yeah.
like your surgeons or that team of doctors didn't tell you everything you needed to know.
No, absolutely not. So I didn't even know like what a hematoma was, if it was possible, whatever. And
Yeah.
then I've also been like really like freaking out about like the nipple grafts, and I've been like asking Cody about them, like freaking out. So yeah, there was definitely some things that I think could have been talked about a little bit more. Is that like your experience, or do you feel like you were like pretty educated the whole way?
I felt pretty in the know. I'm the kind of person that like had thoroughly researched it and asked him all of the really ridiculous questions
Mm.
beforehand. But also, where I went was all they do is gender affirming surgeries, and so I felt like their like bedside manner and all of that was like really excellent because all they
Mhm.
did was see trans patients.
So that's the wild part because I feel like my surgeons were like that too. Like they made me feel so affirmed, so supportive, answered any questions I did have, but I
Mhm.
just like I had way more questions than I realized, I guess. I don't know. It
Yeah.
was it was weird.
I mean, who's gonna go in and be like, explain a hematoma just in case it happens
Right.
to me?
Right,
Like,
exactly. But at the same token, like if that's a possibility, I guess maybe just give me a
yeah.
little heads up, but
See, I wish my surgeon. I feel like I wish I went to a surgeon who specialized more in trans people. My surgeon specialized in cis men who I always forget the goddamn word for it. Starts with a G that just have extra fat in their chests. But
Mhm.
my surgeon, he did his job. He did a good job, but And his bedside manner, like he tried really hard, but like
We love a trying king.
he tried so hard, but the way he woke me up from surgery, I'll never get it out of my head. Oh God, he wakes me up and he goes, Cody, guess what? You're flat. And I'm like,
No,
I
absolutely not.
I am uncomfortable, sir. Get out of my face.
Oh man.
It's not what I wanted to
Like,
hear.
does he do that to everyone, or did he think, oh, this person's trans, so this will really
Yeah.
be
Yep.
helpful?
Like, no.
Oh, I think that. I think that
It
wholeheartedly.
just made me really uncomfortable.
Oh man. Oh man.
Like, I know you think you
That's-
did well. Like, you think you just made me happy,
He
but
ate. Yeah. Like he went home and told his family about that.
Yeah.
Deadass.
Oh man.
Oh.
When I was waking up from my surgery, I was so out of it, and they were like just immediately like, "Do you want water?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll take water." And they handed me a cup. Why did they hand me a cup? And I just went
Wait.
and poured the entire thing on myself,
No
like on
way.
all my dressings and everything.
They set you up for failure with that. Oh
I
my
don't know why.
They
god.
wanted you to fail. What the hell?
No, for real. When I woke up from my surgery, I was in like a straight up panic the whole time. And I remember the nurse just like rubbing my shoulder, being like, "You're in the
Oh.
recovery room. You're fine." I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't feel fine.
Just a light touch of the shoulder. You're okay, bud.
Literally. It was just
Shut
there,
up
there,
now.
child. Literally.
All right, Cameron, let me ask you and kind of get into when you came out as non-binary.
Yeah. So I officially came out to everyone in 2020, just because the lockdown, I had that break where I didn't have to deal with classes and I lost my job. So I was like, what else am I going to do? I'll learn about myself.
Right.
And so the first thing I knew is I need surgery. I need top surgery. This has to happen, and it has to happen this year before I go back to school and before I enter, like, graduate and enter the workforce. It felt important to me to get it done as soon as possible. So before I came out to anyone, I was already scheduling my dates for the surgery.
I love
that. And then, like, I was at the point and I was at UC Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is a very queer college. I met a bunch of queer friends. We were all living together in a house. There was like 9 of us in one house, and we're all queer. And so I just walked in the door one day and I was like, I'm trans. I'm going to use they, them pronouns. And they were like, yeah.
That's awesome. Wow.
It was like the easiest thing. And before that, I came out to my partner. I was like not even worried about it. I was just like, first I was like, I need top surgery. And will you take care of me? And she was like, okay, do you want me to use they, them pronouns? And I was like, nah, not yet. And then the next day I was like, okay, you can use
Actually,
they, them pronouns.
can we go back a little bit?
Okay, you're right.
That's funny.
Yeah, and so coming out to her and then a queer group of friends was like the best way to boost my confidence. I was like so deeply ashamed of being trans at that point that they were all like, it's not a big deal. Like, what are you so stressed about? Because I knew I was trans. I knew I was non-binary when I was like 14, and I didn't come out till I was 21.
Damn, dude, that's a long
Yeah,
time.
so like there was a long time where I was just like repressing that shit so deep. Like I came out as gay when I was 16, and about when I was coming out as gay was like me also coming out as a masculine human. And so I was like, I'm gay now, so I can wear like these clothes. I can wear men's clothes. Like it's fine. And that was met by a lot of unhappiness from my family. Just and like growing up in like California, I thought it was gonna be chill. Like I wasn't really concerned coming out to family, but my parents were very like consumed with what other people thought of us as a family, and how that reflect like me being more masculine, how that reflected on them as parents, or also they were very concerned with my safety and like projected their insecurities about how safe I would be in society onto me. So at like 16, like that's all I was thinking about was like, okay, how do I become like the most acceptable version of myself, and like how do I like become this version of myself where I'll feel safe and like I don't know. So I immediately tried to conform to this like masculine lesbian, like because that was like a better and safer version of me than being trans, because that was a little too far. I don't know. So I really like pushed it all back in. It was even like I was applying to college. I was already 18, had been out as gay for a while, knew I was trans, and I wrote it in my college essay, which I love that you read yours because I related so hard. Like, that's all my essay was about. Like, oh, it's so hard. Like, I'm in the closet and I'm trans and all of
I love
this
that.
shit. And oh man. And then as soon as I got to college, I was like, all right, this is it. I'm like in a new city. I'm 18. I can buy all the clothes I want. I can be myself. I'll be out. And I got to college and I was in a dorm floor, and everybody in the hallway was queer because it was like a LGBT themed hall. So like I had never been surrounded by queer people. Like in my hometown, there was like very few of them, and like I had never met another trans person before. So it was like so neat immediately moving into college and being surrounded by all these people. And so I was like, I need to learn how to be happy as a masculine lesbian. Like this will make my life easier if I just be happy as this. And I also like there's a lot of freedom when you first like I know not everybody, not all trans masculine people come out as gay first, but like there was so much freedom in being masculine lesbian to me. Like I started to feel freedom, gender freedom in small amounts, and I became like so proud to be a lesbian and proud to be a woman that I got to a point where I was like, well, I did all this work to become proud of this identity, and now I'm just gonna like toss it out and say I'm not a woman anymore. And so I battled with that for a long time, and also so from like 18 to 21 I was really trying to force myself into a version of myself that just wasn't right.
I hear you.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a strong topic of like, you know, from somebody who, I guess, especially now with like the way things are and like being a woman and like that feeling of empowerment and standing for something and then completely not aligning with that anymore. I think even a lot of people in the Discord have been like, that was something I had to really adjust to, and something I had to
Mhm.
grieve, and something I felt bad for when like no longer being able, you can still stand up for women and women's rights, of course, but like not as a woman, so it doesn't feel the same. Of course we don't
Yeah,
want to be women,
Mhm.
but like
yeah.
I get it, is all I'm saying, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a lot of grief, and just so like going like no like walking into like lesbian bars, like that used to feel home, that used to feel right, and now I feel like an intruder sometimes. Like, and it feels there's just many aspects to that that I'm still
Yeah.
grieving.
No, I feel, because it's also a place to feel safe too.
Yeah,
No one's gonna feel safe in a bar full of cis men, no matter how you identify either. So,
yeah.
so you, your family, when you told them, they didn't take it well at
Ah,
first?
yes. When well, okay, so like when I came out as gay, they were like, the gay's okay, but don't be too gay, kind of a
Mhm.
thing. Then over the course of that, that was when I was like 16, and then when I was 21, I had gone like so masked, like all I wore were men's clothes, like so they weren't shocked. And there was moments where I'd be on the phone with my mom, and she'd say things like, "When are you gonna ask us to use they them pronouns?" Which was very intrusive to me. I was not ready to talk about it, and so I was very much like, no, like hang that up. I don't want to talk about it. So like they were waiting for me to talk about it and waiting for me to tell them. What they weren't ready for was the surgery. So that was like the big news. I felt like I was breaking to them. So I just like put my whole family on a FaceTime call and was like, "Hey, I'm trans. Please use they them pronouns. You probably already know that. Also, I'm getting surgery on October 6th. And that was
Whoa.
kind of how it happened. But I did it in a way where I was like, I have the money. I saved up for this. I will pay for it. You can support me if you want, but this is happening. Like, I was in a point where like I was not asking. I was telling them, this is my life. This is what I'm doing. I made it happen for myself. And so I'm just letting you in.
Mhm.
And that,
And there's the door
Yeah,
if you
you're
that's
want
how
it.
taking
I
that
had to do
power
it.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they received it really well. And my parents did fly up to take care of me for the first 2 days. Yeah. And my grandma who does not understand, like she is the absolute greatest ally, but just does not understand. And she insisted on paying for my surgery, even though I could afford it. She just was like, "You're not doing that. Like, let me do it." So, my family's been really great. They try really hard.
Yeah, and that's all that matters at the end of the day, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
definitely.
And it's honestly,
Mhm.
it's really cool to hear like from a non-binary person that a family your family got it and understood it because
Yeah.
a lot of people struggle like not a lot of binary trans people struggle with their families in general because
Hmm.
the pronouns and are just too confusing, you know what I mean? So I can't imagine like
Yeah.
having to come out to your family as non-binary when to that generation it's even more confusing. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
I
Mhm.
think the timing of it was really important. The fact that it was 2020, it was being talked about. Like, I think Demi Lovato was out by then. I don't
Mhm.
know. Like,
Yeah, I think
I
so too.
think like, like I think it was talked about enough at that point where they were aware. But when I knew when I was like 17 years old, I was drafting a coming out letter to them because I knew they wouldn't understand. It was like 2016, Trump was just elected. Like I knew they weren't going to understand. So like the timing of it was important. And those are years that I mourn a lot. Like that's a lot of time from like 16, 17 to 21 where I like could have transitioned and like there's so many years that of like just hurt that I could have skipped over if I had felt comfortable and I'd felt like my parents would have been able to receive it at that time. But I've talked to my mom about this and she's like been very honest, like I'm really glad you didn't come out when you were a kid. Like she's told me that she's glad I came out when I was an adult so she didn't have to make any of those decisions, which I kind of get, I guess, but
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
complicated.
And hey, I get it. You know, if a parent is terrified if their kid comes out to them as trans from the ages below of 18, you know what I mean? Because you are making huge decisions for another human being, and that's terrifying. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I don't even know if I could do that for my kid as a trans person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
not that detransitioners are like a really huge thing as everybody says they are, but it could happen. So I
Hmm.
get it. I do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just like not to play devil's advocate, but I feel like you make so many other really important decisions as a parent. That's kind of the gig,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like that's what you're signing up for, in my opinion. So,
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a
mhm.
very fair point.
It's very true. Yeah. My mom was signing me up for all those AP classes without my
Right.
approval. So,
Right. It's like that takes a toll on your mental
Mhm.
health. So I don't know.
Even like going to religion class and like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And going to church. I went to church for so
right.
long.
Yeah, me too.
Really? Okay, yeah.
Did that play a role in anything in your transition or anything?
um, and so what's funny is I feel like my parents were bringing me to church for their own parents. And I think a lot of this plays into my parents' initial reaction to me coming out was more of fear of what other people thought. And because that's kind of how they lived a lot of their lives. Like we went to church for fear of what my grandparents would think
Mm.
or for fear of like what our community would think. Because my hometown was a very religious place. There's like two or three Mormon churches and two Jehovah's Witnesses churches, like all within one city.
Wow.
And so there's like very strict religions, and a lot, like most of my closest friends were Mormon or Jehovah's Witness. And so I knew what their views on me were. Like, I knew what their parents thought. I knew that their parents definitely voted against Prop 8. Like, they did not vote for my right to marry. Like there were certain things I knew growing up, but it wasn't necessarily from my own family. Like, we were never religious. We just went to church because we felt like we should. And then once I was like 13, 14, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then we kind of stopped doing it. So they listened to me and didn't force me to keep going. But it was more of like the vibe of my hometown was very, very religious
Got
and
you.
conservative.
Got you. I fully relate with when you say, they were afraid of what other people would think of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that always, and that's typically how a trans person's family reacts, is just because, they love you so much, they don't want you to ever be bullied or anything like that. That's exactly what my dad said to me when I came out too. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it made me so mad because it's like, but like you don't know, because to my dad I was like, you're old, like you don't get how the world works anymore. Like people like I don't know. He thought that like I would end up looking like a drag queen. You know what I mean? It's like that just
Yeah.
means you're
Mhm.
uneducated and you don't get it. Like, and now that I'm passing so well as a cis man, like you feel comfortable using he/him pronouns in public. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. That always bothered me.
And I felt a lot more fear in my general day to day life when I was presenting and looking like a woman than I do now. Like, there is more like vulnerability when you like are like outing yourself and you don't know how people are going to react. But in my day-to-day life, when people don't know I'm trans, I'm much safer to walk down the street. Like, I'm much safer to do various things.
Mhm.
Although I will say my gender non-conforming era, where people could not tell what I was probably the worst. When people, I got lots of weird comments. Like, and I think most of us from our first few months on T
Right.
Yeah.
all know what that vibe, like, that is
Yep.
awful, being in public when people are like, what are
Right.
you?
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
Do you
Mhm.
like, I guess because you said you'd rather people assume you're a male, I guess, in public, but that still doesn't feel good, right?
hmm yeah, I like prefer presenting masculine and being perceived as masculine, and it just comes with the territory that people assume that means I'm a man.
Mhm.
Um, but also, just like, if I want to walk down the street to the liquor store to get a drink or something, I will feel much safer if I am looking and presenting as a man. When I live in Oakland now, like downtown Oakland, so that plays a lot into it as well. But when I first moved to Oakland, I was so early in my transition that I was not being perceived as a male. And so when me and my girlfriend walked down the street, we'd like think twice before holding each other's hands, even though it is still the Bay Area. But like, I don't know, you still like, there's a certain awareness of your surroundings when you're gender nonconforming or if you're a woman that I'm still aware because I have those experiences, and that's like how I was raised in this world, to be aware of my surroundings, but it's not as necessary
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do prefer like for people to meet me and assume I prefer that they assume I'm a man over a woman, which is why I ended up taking
Right. Yeah.
hormones. That was the ultimate question I had to keep asking myself: is, you're gonna get misgendered one way or another. Which do you prefer?
Oh, that's that's
mm-hmm.
so
Yeah,
not
that's frustrating.
fair. Like that's so not fair.
Right.
Because like at least for binary trans people, like who want to medically transition, it's okay. Like I'm being misgendered now, but as soon as these hormones start to kick in, everything will be fine. Everyone will see me as who I see myself as. But for non-binary people, sometimes they don't always get that, and that's
Yeah.
unfair. I hate that.
Yeah. It's a lot of playing with other versions of gender expression. I've been like, since being more masculine, presenting more masculine, I've been having a lot of fun, like making my wardrobe more feminine or adding jewelry or stuff that I never ever would have done before taking hormones. So there's good in it. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's good and bad.
Do you think that's like kind of how you cope with like having to deal with that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I'm like part of coping, like is if I add some of these more feminine things, maybe someone will think twice before immediately assuming I'm a man or assuming I'm a straight man. Like, I'd rather you assume I'm a queer guy if you're going to assume I'm any kind of guy.
Yeah,
So,
real. Yeah, that makes sense.
so, and like before starting hormones, my way of coping was by wearing the baggiest clothes I could find and hiding parts of your body. And now it's like different. It's like kind of opposite where now I'm like, oh, if I wear like a tighter shirt, like, or like a certain jewelry, like it's all about playing with your expression about the way. So to try to control the way you're perceived. Which is a fine line to walk because that I can get really in my head about it. And then I'm like, well, I'm non-binary because I didn't want to have to feel these pressures of the gender binary. Yet here I am playing into the gender binary, like, and then it's a whole brain
Yeah,
fuck.
it's
Remind me of
fun.
like an infinity sign.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
just keeps going and going. Yeah.
100%. And like clothes and jewelry and things like that play such a, I don't know, important role in no matter how you identify, I guess, because it makes you feel comfortable. You know what I mean? And it's a
Yeah.
struggle. It is a struggle to find clothes and shit that fits correctly. And because for
Mm-hmm.
me and for Nate, I'm assuming like we would want clothes that make us feel more masculine. So like I can't imagine
Mhm.
trying to find clothes that put you in that sweet spot, I guess, where you feel in the middle or any outside of the middle
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Very inspired by just like gay men fashion, like the androgyny that gay men have,
Mhm.
also the androgyny that masculine lesbian have. I just want to like mash it together into like an androgynous thing, and then that's me.
That's me.
Mhm.
I love that.
I love that.
But I do what you're saying about like clothes, like I think that's something people don't talk about enough is how expensive it is when you're like trying to figure out your style in the best clothes to fit whatever dysphoria you have, and like that shit is expensive and time consuming and just sucks, especially if you don't really like clothes or like fashion.
Right. And it's so hard to put
Mm.
like the idea into motion, if that makes sense. Like I have a whole freaking
Yeah.
Pinterest board of clothes that would make me feel euphoric as fuck. And I go to the store and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find this exact outfit. I pick up the exact same things and then I put it on. It's like this is not how I saw it in my head. What the
Yeah.
hell?
And then it just doesn't fit your body the same way it does
Right.
that
Yeah.
Pinterest
Ugh.
person, and then it's like
Mhm.
a whole
And then it's
thing.
like, oh, is it
Whole
because they're
entity.
yeah? Is it because they're cis and I'm not? What the fuck?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
uh, but speaking on not feeling great about ourselves, gender dysphoria. I know that we've talked a lot already about that you have it and whatnot. But do you
Hmm.
think that gender dysphoria is different in non-binary people than it is for binary and trans people?
Yeah, because like as you're saying, like you would go clothes shopping and just find the thing that makes you feel the most masculine, makes you feel the most euphoric. Where maybe that's not. I don't want to be like the most masculine or like. And I think I have dysphoria where I on either side, where like you probably just want to become like the man. I don't know that I'm just projecting, but maybe you just want to be the manliest man
Right.
possible.
Yeah.
Like, but like that is so not my goal. Like there's a certain like place where that will make me dysphoric. Like if I stayed on T for my whole life, I know I don't imagine myself in my head aging as like an old man.
Mm.
I don't really
Mm-hmm.
know what I picture myself when I'm aging, but it's not as an
Not
old
that.
man.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
but no, that's a good point because I think a lot of my transition, a lot of my dysphoria is figuring out what I don't want.
Mm.
And
Ooh.
I can see that more clearly than what I can see what I do want. And
Mhm.
I knew what I did not want was a high voice anymore. I knew what I did not want was to be called she, her anymore. And then now what I don't want is to become like really hairy and have to deal with like back hair and like so like I'm navigating this based on what makes me feel good in this moment. And I think something, and this is a kind of a complicated topic, but something that people ask non-binary people a lot is like, if you were born cis, or if you were born male, would you still be non-binary? Like, would you still feel dysphoria? Like, or because like I assume you guys would have felt perfectly fine to be born as a cis guy, even though now you're proud to be trans and don't necessarily want that. But but like I believe that if I fully myself was born into a cis guy's body, I still would feel lots of dysphoria. I don't think that that's not the solution at all for me. And when I was young, 14 to 16, when I was writing up that coming out letter to my parents, I wished so badly to just be a trans man. Like, I just would sit there watching all these YouTube videos being like, why can't I just be a trans man? I want all the things they want, yet that's not me. So I do think that that confliction in my dysphoria is something that like binary trans people don't have to
Right.
experience.
Yeah. And that concept is wild to me. Like that there's dysphoria on both sides because, like you said, Nate and I and all other trans guys probably like I see it as like a line, right? Being feminine is all the way over here, being masculine is all the way over here. I want to be so far
Mhm.
this way. Like and
Yeah,
like the more this way I get, the more euphoric I feel. And I can't imagine like having to find I don't know. That's just wild to me. I can't wrap my head
yeah.
around it fully.
Mhm.
Um okay, so I want to ask a little bit, what do you think is like the biggest misconception about non-binary people as a whole?
Okay, a few. I think a big misconception is that it's a trend or like a new thing. And this is something I've heard and people have said to me, which is like just so disrespectful to our history. And I'm just like other cultures as well that view non-binary people and just third genders, two-spirit,
Mm.
and so it's just like disrespectful, and also just like you're revealing how dumb you are. Like, if you really think that, like, you just don't know anything about queer history.
Mhm.
Um, and so like I've had binary trans person say that to me, and they were quite a bit older than me and earlier on in their transition than I was at the time. And I was like coming up to them being like, hey, like, I'm getting misgendered all the time, like just wanting to vent and wanting somebody to relate to me. And they were like, well, you're getting misgendered as he, him. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, well, you kind of get why that's it is, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I get why that is, but like
No,
that's not.
absolutely not.
I was just like, what the fuck? And then they followed it up. She followed it up with, well, I mean, they them wasn't a thing until like 2020 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, you too. Like you're on my
Right.
side. Like what?
Mhm.
Um,
Ain't nothing worse.
yeah. So that was like that actually like really did bother me for a while. That I was like, somebody, and I don't know if it's like generational because they were older or because they're newer in their transition. And I feel like in a way they were kind of projecting because she was constantly getting misgendered as he, him when she was newly out as a trans woman. So I feel like there was a lot going on in that conversation, but oh man, like it just hurts me to think that people like cis people think that, but so do trans people. And like, so that is one of my least favorite, but worse than that is like thinking that non-binary is just like the third gender. It's just the third gender. They're like that now there's three. Like, and that is just like fully misunderstanding what non-binary even is. Like, non-binary is like fully rejecting the gender binary. It's rejecting this system that we have in place. It's saying that I am more than these words can describe. Like, I am like, there's so many ways to experience gender as there are people, and I experience my gender fully uniquely. Nobody has my gender. I have my gender. And like the fact that people just want to be like, oh, it's just like the third option, like that pisses me off because I know like that's that's not
Mhm.
true.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a whole point that I don't think I've ever heard anybody really say, to be honest, because that's facts. I feel like a lot of people think non-binary is both genders, like somebody who can't
Mm,
decide, or is both, but really it's neither, and it's unique, as you said. That makes perfect sense. 100%.
yeah. And for some people, maybe it is both.
Sure.
For some people, maybe it's neither. For some people, it is none of the above. Like, and I just like the fact that I know I'm experiencing my gender and just myself in a way that's fully unique from anybody else around me. And that gives me a lot of euphoria, to be honest, to think about
Mm,
that.
hell
So,
yeah. I love that. Now, you said also that people think that it's a trend and that it's a new thing. And this relates a lot to Nate and I's episode together, actually, because we were talking about queer history a lot.
mhm.
And somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, because I speak out of my ass a lot. Don't know I have a podcast, but um, it. I think I don't know if it's true or not, but I saw this on TikTok, so I don't fucking know. But haven't non-binary people been around longer than binary trans people have been made aware of? I guess. Does anybody else know? Because I don't.
I mean, if we go back to like indigenous cultures before we arrived here, the indigenous cultures have not only um, accepted and see non-binary or two-spirit, but they celebrate that.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
Mhm.
but I don't know. Nate, you probably know a little bit more. That's
No,
that's
I
just
mean
what
you
I've
took the
learned
words.
online.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. And like again, it's that idea of using terms that we use today and applying them to our history when like it was just different wording in our history. So like yeah, you're probably not going to find the term non-binary, and that's what people like to weaponize with and say, "No, it's a new trend. Like this is the term that they're using." You know what I mean? Um, so like yes, okay, sure, you can say that the term might be new or whatever, but the idea, the concept, the feelings, X, Y, and Z have been around way longer than us, and it's going to be around after us.
True. Mm. People get very hung up on the terminology of things too. Like, you really think that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, out of how many people on planet Earth that have ever lived, that like in 2022 it was the first time this was ever thought of? Like, are you kidding? Like,
Like just
Yeah.
think a little bit more, please. Like maybe we don't have to go back to 1500s, 1600s. But do you really think this random year is the
yeah,
year?
right.
Like that also just doesn't make sense to me.
Dead ass. Now, let me ask you, if Cameron, if how much it bothers you when people say that the pronouns they them are only used when talking about a group of people, because I've heard my fair share
Yeah,
of that.
that shit's just dumb too. And like that's what most of these like misconceptions, I'm just like you're dumb. Like, and you're saying that so confidently, and like that's showing me a lot about who you are.
Hmm.
Because when I first came out to my grandma, who I was telling you about, like she didn't understand, but I sat her down and explained it, and then she was thinking, and then saw like somebody with short hair walk past and be like, "So I would say they are walking down the beach," and I was just like, "That's as easy
I'm
as
a
it is."
cry.
Like,
That's amazing.
like it's so easy, and I know we all use it without even thinking about it, and it's like my grandma can pick it up in just like a couple minutes of conversation. Like it's clearly not this like huge like thing that you need to wrap your head around. Like you don't need to be like a mathematician, or like it's not
No, it's
complicated.
not.
Like it's real
True.
life. And yeah.
And you're so
And
right. They
yeah.
make themselves look so stupid. Like,
Yeah.
it's like it was in textbooks when we were in high school that, like, if you don't know somebody's gender, you use they them. Like, I remember my history
Hmm.
teacher telling me that before I even knew what non-binary was. Like, we were taught this. You just weren't paying attention. You know what I mean? I don't
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
know. I wanted to, before, you were talking a bit about how you viewed trans people, I mean trans men when you were younger, maybe, and how you related to them more. But also, I know in your survey you said that it could be a little invalidating when you couldn't relate to some things that trans men went through. Now, do you maybe want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that kept me from coming out for a really long time, was the fact that I was like, because I was watching all these YouTube videos of everyone transitioning as you do as a baby trans. Um, and I just wasn't able to find someone that like shared my story exactly, like, and that felt invalidating. I felt like as soon as I found the one person that felt exactly the way I did, then that would mean I was trans. And I just like I wasn't finding, at least at that time period, I wasn't finding any non-binary people going through medical transitions and through the same medical transitions that trans men were, because I wanted all those things. I wanted top surgery. I wanted hormones. I just thought it was only for trans men. And I knew because I didn't align with every one of their like experiences that that wasn't me. Um, yeah, I just knew. And of what I was saying about like I'm being led through my transition more by what I like don't like versus like what I like.
Right.
And I knew, or I think I said that opposite, but you know what I mean. And I just knew that I did not want to be called a man, and that's all I knew. And so clearly, I was not able to relate to trans men. That's all they
Mhm.
wanted, was to be seen and called he, him, and be seen as a man. And that was like a very big thing I couldn't get past. And then I thought I just couldn't be trans. So I think that was a big reason I wanted to do this as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
Just as many viewpoints as possible out there for
Of
people.
course, it's so important because, like, even though you said, like, with the top surgery thing, like, top surgery has become such a FTM surgery, a trans man surgery. And, like, even
Mm,
trans men
mhm,
and myself, I need to be held accountable for that because, like, for a long time, I called it like a trans man surgery, an FTM surgery, like, not even thinking about
Hmm.
non binary people. Because I think a lot of people forget that non binary people can medically transition. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Uh,
mhm,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that was frustrating, when I was like looking into surgery and stuff. It's like everything's very much advertised for the trans man, and it's very gender affirming for the trans man, which is great.
mhm,
And everything's called like FTM and all
mhm,
that. So it was always very annoying. And I got my surgery in San Francisco, so this wasn't something I had to worry about. But a lot of people don't do top surgery if you're not on hormones. And I wasn't at the time.
mm,
And there was other barriers where I was worried that maybe one of my therapist letters wouldn't be approved because I'm not a trans man, or like some things like that. I was a little worried that if there was any question about like, oh, I'm not 100% man, I need this surgery, like that they wouldn't approve it. Which I'm in California in the Bay Area, so that wasn't really something I had to deal with, but it's a concern for some
yeah.
people.
I was forced to be on hormones for a year before I got top surgery from
Hmm.
my therapist. You too, Nate? Yeah.
same. Yep, same.
And
Yeah.
at the time, I didn't even think about how that would affect a non-binary person. That's fucked
Hmm.
up. What the hell?
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, if I was forced to have started hormones before surgery, I genuinely don't know, because I think I had to have surgery in order to finally realize that I needed to be on hormones.
Mm,
Like,
Mm.
my dysphoria around my chest was so massive, I couldn't get past that to realize that I had so much other dysphoria. Like,
mm.
so I really don't know how things would have gone for me if they required me to be on hormones.
That's a fat point too. Like dysphoria. Dysphoria is like a monster. Like I don't get it. I still don't get it. 7 years
Mm,
in,
mhm.
don't understand it. Like
It's like a monster in the shadows.
right.
Like it
Yeah.
just yeah.
I don't know. Because you're right. Like if you have dysphoria in a specific place or mindset, like, and then you get surgery for it or something, and you get it taken care of, and it's like, I'm finally free, and then, like, I don't know, a month passes, and you're like, oh no, oh no, I have dysphoria in other places
Here's
too.
the next thing.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Now you kind of did it before, but I want to ask you again. How would you describe what being non-binary feels like to someone who maybe doesn't understand it?
Yeah. And so there's a quote that I'm not even gonna try to say it, but Alok is a fantastic like poet and speaker. But a lot of their views on gender is like kind of the way I view my gender, and I genuinely think that there are infinite ways to experience gender. There are as many ways to experience being a man as there are men in society, and there are as many ways to experience like being non-binary or just their lack thereof gender or whatever. There's as many ways to experience your unique gender as there are people. And I think that's what being non-binary means to me, is just embracing the fluidity of gender and embracing just that there are no boxes or boundaries for me, that my gender is whatever I want it to be, and it's like infinite, and I appreciate and embrace its fluidity, where maybe I want to be as masculine as possible, or maybe I want to be feminine and wear makeup and jewelry, like, and I'm not going to stop myself. I'm not going to like think, I mean, I do because I grow up in this society, but I'm unlearning those boundaries, those gender binary boundaries that tell me, no, you can't do this. You have to fit into this box. And it's, for me, it's just like absolutely throwing away the idea of the gender binary and just allowing myself to be me without all of that.
Period.
And that's the way I think of it.
No, I love that. There's no barriers for you, and as a trans guy who, I don't know, like, yes, I want to be on the very masculine side of things because that's what makes me feel good about myself. But sometimes I find myself being like, I don't want to say like, damn, I put myself in this box that now I have to be masculine all the time. I don't know. I said I didn't want to say it, but that is how I feel. Like like dead ass. Like sometimes I'm like, damn, like Nate knows, like I want to be a little bit more girly pop today. Like,
Uh-huh.
and I
Uh-huh.
end up feeling like, fuck, I can't do that because I've spent 7 years of my life coming up with this masculine person that I'm not sometimes. Like I am, but I'm also not sometimes. It's more fluid than I thought it was. And it doesn't mean that
Mhm.
I think I might be non-binary or that I'm not a trans man. I 100% am, but I think that no matter if you're a binary trans person or a non-binary person, like gender can be fluid no matter what you identify as. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, my own definition, I'm not trying to say that you can't embrace the fluidity of gender without being non-binary.
No, right.
Like,
I hear you.
And I also feel like, Cody, like what you just talked about, I relate to so hard because like I have those moments of like questioning it and whatnot, but then like I'm also like worried that like people are suddenly going to be like, well, then he's not trans then.
Mhm.
Like, you know what I like he's not a trans man then, and like that gets me going and like freaking out. But like exactly like Cody, like I am very like, let's go girls, like here, that's very me. But then I'm also like, I have a fantasy football league, so it's just like I don't know. It's really weird.
Right. And we're
I love that fantasy football is your like masculine
Yes,
definition.
it totally is.
I mean, it works though, because I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that is.
Yes.
I remember when I was younger, my dad tried to get me to join his fantasy football league, and I was like, okay, so when do I get to design their
That's
jersey?
literally what I thought it was for so long too.
That is amazing.
Like dead ass.
Oh, I love that. You get to create your own team name.
I want to give him an outfit.
I want to make them look
That's
pretty.
fair. Yeah.
Oh, that's
I love
amazing.
that.
Yeah, I think we're taught to conform to, like, even binary trans people are told in a way that whatever gender you quote unquote choose, because you can't choose, but like is the gender you have to be, and you have to align with that gender 100%.
Mm.
And like, I don't know, that's clearly not how things work. And no matter how you identify, there's no like
Mhm.
rule book. You can be however you want. You can like fantasy football and RuPaul's Drag Race. Damn it! Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's Nathan.
uh, uh, one little last topic for the day. We're hitting an hour. Um, now I want to talk about non-binary people in the media a little bit, and how do you think non-binary people? How would you want to see a non-binary person be represented in the media?
I guess if we're talking about like celebrity culture, I am appreciating how many people are coming out, from like Sam Smith to Demi Lovato, and I think the more people that come out that look and present differently is really important, because people perceive non-binary people a certain way, specifically as like a fab, like non-manically transition,
Mhm.
like people have a very certain like perception of non-binary people, and they have that perception as a way of writing them off. And so I think the more people that come out as non-binary and present just however they want to present, is really great for us. And then like also the more people that come out, the more there are like people to relate to, and like that is very important when you're like coming out and realizing. But in like media in general, I would just like to see like in TV shows and movies just non-binary representation just at all. And I um, absolutely loved Sex Education, which of course we have to talk about that when we're talking about representation, because Cal, oh my God. And when this came out, I was like within weeks of stopping tea, and I was sobbing every time Cal was on screen. I was absolutely sobbing because, oh my God, if like I had seen a character like Cal who like portrays um like the joys of queerness as well as the struggles of like needing top surgery, not able to get it, being on hormones and all the crazy changes, yet not being able to talk to anybody about it or relate to anybody. Like there were so many moments where I was just like, oh my God, like if I had been able to see this when I was like 16, this would have changed my entire life. And like that's what representation does. Like I would have been able to be like, mom, dad, that's me. Like, and that would have changed everything for me in that time period. And this show wouldn't have been able to exist in 2016. Like that's just kind of a fact. But the
Mhm.
more characters we see like Hal, and the more shows like Sex Education, like the better people are going to be able to understand non-binary identities. And that goes for trans people in general. Like trans people have always been the butt of the joke in comedy, and like just their existence is comedy in movies. And so the more we move away from that, and the more we have like fully developed trans characters, like the better it's going to be for us all, and just like the perception of us. Like I don't know, and I will always like say like watch Disclosure, because that shit like
Mm.
that documentary really opened my eyes to so much transphobia that I didn't know existed.
Right. And, you
Mm.
know, speaking about sex education too, I remember when I realized Cal's character was non binary and not a trans man. And I was like, okay, shit. Like, like, there's so much trans representation in the last season of Sex Education. Like, it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
And at the end, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the latest season of Sex Education, um, at the end, I like how they made Cal kind of like I don't know, like their whole storyline was the end of the season. You know what I mean? Like Cal ran away and nobody can find them, and everything. At the end, you see, what's his name? Cal's like homie. They're like really good friends. The athlete
Oh,
who might be gay. I don't know, but
yeah.
he.
I love that storyline.
Me too.
But at the end, he's a cis man who's questioning his sexuality, his gender, but he's still like very much like your typical cis man, you know what I mean? And at the end, it's them two, Cal and him, sitting together, like, and the cis man is helping and like is like, no matter what, I got you, like it'll be fine, and like that is what's important to see. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
yes, trans
absolutely.
people sticking together and everything, but also cis people need to see that it's okay to be nice to trans people. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and it's
Say
okay to
that
have a
louder.
crush on
Right?
one.
Oh
Yeah.
my god,
Right.
we're getting crazy here.
And that was a huge topic in it too with him, because he was like, if I like a non-binary person, what does that mean for my sexuality? Like, how do I identify? And it's like,
Mhm.
bestie, it doesn't matter, you do you. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's cool.
Hmm.
yeah,
And I also wanted to bring up that you're right, a lot of people don't realize that not only AFAB people are non-binary.
Mm.
I have a couple of people in the Discord I know have taken the survey who hopefully will be on HRT one day soon, that, you know, how invalidating it is for somebody who was born male, who is now non-binary, because the rest of the world always thinks that it's only AFAB people. You know what I mean?
hmm
I think that's really damaging.
yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. It's really damaging when the world has only one specific perception of what you can
Right.
be.
100%.
Hmm.
I
So
have
yeah,
faith. I have faith in the future. We came a long way with gay people. I feel like it's still not perfect, but you know, being trans is the next thing. I swear to God, I have
yeah.
faith in the future.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and I think the way sex education was received is hopefully going to mean that there's going to be more shows like it and more shows just absolutely full of representation. That is my
Mm-hmm.
hope for the
Mm-hmm.
future because, yeah, just being able to show cis people trans stories is that's going to be the main, like, and subtly show them our stories because
Right. So that it's
that's
not like you're
key.
shoving it down my throat. Like,
Yeah.
okay, but it works. Like,
Yeah.
all right. So before we go, trans song of the week. I see you chose two, and I want to hear about both of them.
Yeah. Okay, my first one was just like my first initial reaction, but then I thought of a better one. But when this song was first out, oh my god, and I was just so young, I didn't know any better. I thought I took it so literally. But If I Were a Boy by Beyonce, oh my god, that shit slaps. Like I was there like singing to myself like if I were a boy, like what would I do? Like wow.
I love that fucking
Real.
song. That was my song when I came out as trans, just for the meme, I guess. But like,
Yeah.
Great.
talk to me about your next one.
But I know it's like it's more of like a breakup
It
song.
is,
But
but
so my other one is Rebel Rebel by David Bowie. Just like that initial opening, like your
yes,
mom doesn't know if you're a boy or a girl. Like that is like just the ultimate like gender nonconforming non-binary anthem and just like the whole like glam rock and David Bowie and like just like the whole world in like the 70s like really glorified and celebrated feminine men and gender nonconformity, and why did we stop?
right. Like, what happened?
I have no idea.
uh, I want to go back to that time. Born in the wrong generation.
Yeah.
uh, I love that choice though. It's giving similar to Nate's episode, Dad Rock. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Dad Rock is the best.
It really always gets me the feels.
All right, Slade. Thank you so much for sharing that song. That song, both songs will be in the description below if anyone wants to check them out. Um, also, I keep forgetting Nate was so lovely and helped me create a little Google Doc full of all the trans songs that have been uh, talked about on HRT. So hopefully, I can get those somewhere so everyone can reach them more easily. Uh, yeah, just want to let everybody know that. But before we go, before we go, Cameron, give me your socials so people can follow you.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm like not active, but you can follow me. It's just my name, Cammy McKelvey. And then I'm on Discord as well. So join the HRT Discord, and I'm Camabam with two M's. So
Nice, awesome. Yes, please join the Discord server. I would greatly appreciate it. And Nathan, throw your socials out there.
Yes, Instagram and DIORIO1023.
Slay. And make sure you follow me at HRT Podcast on TikTok and Instagram. I post on there every single day. You know the friggin' spiel. Join the Discord, sub to my Patreon. I need money. This shit is not cheap.
And it's good content.
Yeah.
It's fun.
They trying to be like, you have to actually tell them what's on there, Cody.
I remind him all the time.
Thank you, Nate. Yes, I actually post on there like a lot. So like you're missing out on a lot of HRT content if you're not subscribed to the Patreon. So please subscribe to me on here. I post and I drop videos every Tuesday. Make sure you turn those post notifications on so you know when I post. And this has been lovely. Cameron, you are awesome. This was a great episode. And Nathan, thank you for helping me out.
Thank you very much.
Of course. I will see you guys next week. Bye.